It's your joyless would-be philosopher, back at it again, with more questions than answers and more grumbles than grace. And I realize I've been a little tup lately also. But hey, at least I'm consistent.
Tup, a Welsh word that means silly or foolish. It's often used in a playful, affectionate way to describe someone who's being a bit goofy or absent-minded. It's not harsh at all, just a gentle teasing way to say, you're being a bit tup.
Now, before we launch into today's discussion, I want to explain my tupness and talk about something that's been on my mind of late. Something I've been chewing on like an old dog with a cosmic bone for some time and recommending in my videos. And that's raising your vibration. Now, I thought it might be a good idea for me to explain what I think it means. It was a little tup of me to assume everyone knows what raising your vibration is, especially since it took me a while to figure it out. Not that that's surprising. So what does it even mean to raise or change our vibration? Is it our body, our mind, our soul we're talking about? Well, here's what I've come to understand. And no, it didn't come in a blinding flash of enlightenment. It came in the usual way, slowly, stubbornly, and with a lot of skepticism. But I think I finally got there. I have come to believe that raising our vibration isn't just about thinking happy thoughts or eating chia seeds till we float away. It's about aligning our entire being, our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and even our energy field with higher principles like truth, compassion, sovereignty, and freedom. It's about resonance. It's the process of remembering who and what we really are, beneath all the programs, trauma, and forgetfulness. And let me tell you, I know all about forgetfulness. Where was I? Oh yes. Now, on a mental level, it means shifting our thought patterns, beliefs, and overall outlook. It means moving from fear, from judgment, and from confusion to the opposite of those corrosive emotions. It involves conscious awareness, cultivating gratitude, positive thinking, and letting go of limiting mental frameworks, the type that keeps us imprisoned. On a physical level, the body is often the anchor of our vibration. What we eat, how we move, and how we rest. All of this affects our energetic frequency. A body bogged down by toxins, poor sleep, or stress will naturally feel heavy, whereas a well-tuned body feels lighter and more energized. And here's where it gets interesting. Raising our vibration often refers to what is termed as our subtle energy body, that aspect of us that transcends the physical and the mental, which is our emotional frequency, our soul's resonance, and our alignment with truth, love, and source. This is where practices like meditation, presence, inner stillness, and soul remembering comes in. The more aligned you are with your true nature, the divine spark, the higher your vibrational frequency becomes. Now, if you're a little cranky like me, you'll be asking, so which one is it? Well, it's all the above. They're not separate, they interweave. Raise the frequency of one layer, and the others tend to follow. But ultimately, it's about energetic alignment with your true self, that is, with source and with love, which is often said to be the highest vibration of all. Think of it like this. Imagine that you are a finely crafted violin, Stradivarius. The mind is the tuning pegs. They control the tension of the strings, your thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. If they're too tight, anxious or rigid, or too loose, scattered or apathetic, the music's off. When your thoughts are aligned, the strings are in tune. The body is the wooden body of the violin. It's the resonating chamber. If it's well maintained, that is clean, smooth, and cared for, it produces beautiful resonance. If it's cracked, dirty or neglected, the sound becomes muffled or distorted. Your physical habits shape your vibrational tone. The spirit or energy is the vibration of the strings themselves. This is the actual music, the frequency you emit. It's invisible, but it's what people feel. It's your presence, your essence. It carries emotion, soul and energy. The more in tune the mind and the body, the purer and more powerful the spiritual vibration. Raising your vibration is equal to playing in tune with the cosmos. And when all three are in harmony, mind tuned, body resonant, spirit vibrating clearly, you become an instrument of higher frequency, part of the great symphony of the universe. Or in Grumpy Grandpa terms, it's like finally figuring out how to stop playing sour notes in the concert of existence. I thought it was important to have that context, so when I speak of raising our vibration in future videos, we have this explanation. And that brings us to the real meat of today's episode, something called the Law of One. Now I'll warn you, the Law of One doesn't always go down easy, especially when you've been looking at this place we call reality and wondering if we're not just stuck in a spiritual flytrap. For example, how do we reconcile this idea that we are all one, all part of the infinite creator having an existence, with the soul trap hypothesis, with a memory wipe, and with all the suffering, deception, and manipulation we seem to be enduring here? How do we square that circle? Well, that's exactly what we're going to try and untangle today. Because if we're honest, and I try to be in my own grumpy way, this paradox is at the heart of the whole mystery. The question becomes, is this reality the infinite having an experience? Or is something else going on? Something layered? Something distorted? Is this reality the canvas of source entity? Or is it a hijacked simulation, mimicking creation, with just enough truth to keep us guessing? And here's the thing, maybe it's both. Maybe understanding this paradox is the key to transcending it. So grab your coffee, your notebook, or your tinfoil hat if you need it, and let's get into the deep stuff. Because if we're going to break free of the trap, we have to understand why we were caught in the first place, and what it would mean to remember that we were never truly separate to begin with. I'm the Grumpy Grandpa. I've had the books on the Law of One for some time, but only lately began to read them with any kind of earnestness, because basically this is where my journey has slowly been guiding me to the great question, who am I? So what is the Law of One, and what led me to get and read the books? The Law of One is a series of channeled teachings received between 1981 and 1984 by a group known as LL Research, primarily through one Carla Ruckert, with Don Elkins and Jim McCarty assisting the sessions. The entity speaking through Carla identified itself as Ra, who also described itself as a social memory complex, or a collective consciousness, would be how we would describe it. Ra is from the sixth density, far beyond our current stage of evolution. At its core, the Law of One is astonishingly simple. All is one, and that one is the infinite creator. So all is unity. All beings, all experiences, all densities, all realities are expressions of the one infinite creator. That's the heart of the teaching. Everything, you, me, this bizarre simulation we call our reality, even the manipulators and the so-called trap, are all part of the one having an experience of itself. In the raw material, this is broken down into densities of consciousness, an evolutionary ladder of awareness and unity, from simple physical existence to godlike being and beyond. But, and here's where it gets a little chewy, and which was brought on largely by my video, A Brief History of God, where I looked at the work of Guy Stephen Needler and his experience of contacting God, or Source Entity as he calls it, and his conversation with Source, the main theme of which is that Source fragmented itself to gain experience of itself through us, fragments of Source or divinity. And it was Needler's work which, in a roundabout way, led me to the raw material. But, and this is a big but, there is a huge tension between unity, that is all is one, and the idea of the trap. I raised this gnarly contradiction in the last video. How can this be one infinite creator expressing itself if what we're experiencing feels like a trap? Why would Source fracture itself into forgetfulness, suffering, and predation? And this has been a huge problem for me. These two ideas seem antithetical, mutually incompatible, ideas that appear directly opposite. And for someone like me, not the sharpest tool in the shed, this has been a problem. After giving this some thought, here are some key pieces I've come up with to help reconcile this apparent contradiction, at least for me. Firstly, the trap may be real, but it's within the one. This is how the Law of One frames it. The one, or in the one, there are opposite polarities, and the trap would be part of the negative polarity, or the service to self path, manipulation, control, fear. This is all part of the one. It's not an accident. It's a distortion. It exists so that free will can play out in full spectrum, even into darkness. So yes, the trap may exist. Memory wipes, control systems, archontic forces, but they're not outside of the one. They are localized distortions. Think of it like a dream within a dream. Just because it's twisted doesn't mean it's not currently playing out inside the dreamer. It took me a while to come to terms with this explanation, and I'm going to be honest, it's not easy. For me, there were ethical problems, and in admitting that, I probably hit on what is possibly the deepest theological and philosophical riddle out there. How do we reconcile the existence of negative polarity, service to self, cruelty, domination, with the idea of an infinitely loving, benevolent, intelligent creator? And when we throw in Yahweh, smiting cities, flooding the world, demanding obedience, Well, it's no longer a tidy New Age love fest. It becomes more of a spiritual murder mystery. Now, I've just pulled back the curtain on forbidden knowledge. So let's unpack this with care and maybe a little bit of fire. If all is one, and that one is love, then why does the service to self path even exist? Why does it have any power at all? According to Ra, free will is the highest law of the universe. So for the Creator to truly know itself, it must allow every possibility to be explored, even those that seem completely opposed to love. So the negative polarity, control, enslavement, deception, is permitted as a valid path of evolution, though it's a more difficult one, but one that must ultimately reintegrate into unity. And here's where the ethical tension kicks in. If source is love, how can it allow atrocities as a path to itself? Isn't that just cosmic gaslighting? And that tension can't just be glossed over with, it's all lessons, or everything happens for a reason. No, this needs a real confrontation. Let's be blunt. If God is all-loving and all-powerful, how can it allow horrors, genocide, child abuse, manipulation, enslavement, torture as part of some divine curriculum? This is the problem of evil dressed in spiritual garb. In law of one terms, the negative path is lawful within distortion. It exists within the structure of duality so that contrast can exist. Ra puts it this way: the Creator does not properly create as much as it experiences itself. But here's the problem, and it's one that can't be ignored. Does this make the Creator morally indifferent? And if so, is this really a being worthy of our trust, love, or worship? In this view, the Creator splits itself into light and dark so it can experience contrast and eventually reunify. Everyone plays a role. I suppose Hitler and the Buddha are part of the same play. You, the victim, and the perpetrator are all masks of the one. So what are the strengths of this argument? Well, it explains why darkness exists. And the problems with this? It can trivialize suffering. It can be used to excuse evil. And what about the ethical tension? Well, if God plays both torturer and tortured, then morality itself becomes relative, I suppose. And the soul trap becomes a natural consequence of this game and not an aberration. Then I stumbled across the hijacked creation theory. This one says, yes, source is love. Yes, duality was part of the plan. But something interfered. A part of the creation took its free will and turned it against the system. This leads to corrupted realms, false light hierarchies, simulated heavens, and soul traps. Here the negative polarity wasn't supposed to be this dominant. The trap isn't part of divine will. It's a hijack within the larger story, kind of distortion of the distortion. Now, I suppose this theory does preserve God as fundamentally loving and just, but the problem is it implies something is operating outside divine control, which challenges the omnipotence of the One. The One doesn't have full control over itself, or that's how it appears. And I can't leave this discussion without bringing in Yahweh. The Old Testament God is not the fluffy, forgiving source we see in religious circles. This deity commands genocides, the killing of babes, floods the world, and demands total submission, or else. And in previous videos, I mirrored the stance of Paul Anthony Wallace, where he claims Jesus distanced himself from Yahweh, never used his name, and implied the Father Jesus often spoke of was a different entity altogether. So how do we explain that? Ra gives an explosive answer. Yahweh was real, a planetary logos level being, an advanced entity, not the infinite creator itself. Yahweh tried to help early humans, but his intervention was co-opted by negative Orion-type entities. He then tried to correct course with even more control. According to Ra, the God of the Old Testament, a being who got too involved in the game, lost balance, and drifted into authoritarianism. Not evil per se, but confused. Not the one, but a powerful part of it, caught in its own polarity crisis. So where does this leave us? Well, it means we're dealing with a layered reality, I guess. At the highest level, the one is love, and all things return to it. At the mid-level, distortions like negative polarity play out within the law of free will. At the lowest level, some parts of creation have gone rogue. They use law against themselves. They simulate light. They trap souls. And they harvest energy. And here's the thing, and it's good news, kind of. We, us, fellow grumpies, are maybe one of the pieces of the one that woke up inside the dream. We noticed the distortion. Why else would you be watching this video? We're asking the forbidden questions. And that's an act of raising vibration in itself. Not by bypassing evil, but by looking it straight in the eye and remembering who we are anyway. The fact that this hell realm isn't going to be eternal is kind of encouraging. That our ultimate reunion with Source is an inevitability. It lifts my perspective. So I can face what we are dealing with a flavor of hope, because I remember who I am and will eventually return to that reality. For example, Ra explains that we incarnate with a veil of forgetting deliberately, so we can make real, authentic choices and experience growth. Pain, limitation, even manipulation are catalysts. They push us to awaken. But, and here we have another twist. What if something interfered with that original intention? What if the veil became more like a prison than a catalyst? Then we could be dealing with a hijacked version of the original design. This is where the soul trap hypothesis slots in. Maybe the original game was fair, and maybe, just maybe, it got tampered with. And now remembering who we are and choosing a higher path is how we break out of that corrupted layer. In the law of one, your higher self exists already in late sixth density. It's not confused and it's not lost. It's us, you, me, from the future, guiding this incarnation through the maze. So if you feel trapped, as I often do, remember, a version of you is watching, waiting, gently nudging you to remember, not just your cosmic origin, but also that you chose to descend with great courage into this confusion in order to transform it. Everything we do either serves others or the self. The trap thrives when we serve only ourselves, out of fear, isolation, or ego. But when we remember our oneness and act accordingly, with compassion, courage, and integrity, we begin to shift into a vibration that the trap can no longer hold. That's how we raise our vibration. That's how we remember. That's how we transcend. The trap is a frequency. If our frequency changes beyond it, well, the trap disintegrates. That's evolution, baby. So what does this mean for us? Well, it means the trap is not the whole story. It might be part of a larger drama, a detour or hijack in an otherwise sacred journey. And remembering that we are not victims, but fragments of Source with a power to wake up, is how we change the game. And I'm beginning to realize that this fact that all is one might be the awakening that's taking place right now, as I'm sure we all can see. Lately, having looked at these various pieces of the quantum jigsaw has brought me closer to what I perceive is the truth and makes the most sense to me thus far. But this is not the end of the story. I have had another synchronicity. Another door has opened that explains all this in good, solid, scientific terms. What I'm going to discuss next is the glue that stick all the pieces together. However, before then, I have a lot of heavy reading to do. So the next episode might be a little longer coming out. Well, in fact, it will be a little longer. I'm going home to Wales in a few days to do some building work with my son to help him out. And it'll be for about 3 weeks. But it will give me time to read what many are saying is one of the most fundamental philosophical thinking of our modern time. So expect the next video in about a month. But before I go, I have a confession to make. After all this talk about raising my vibration, facing the soul trap and merging with the infinite, something strange is starting to happen. I woke up this morning, looked in the mirror, and for the first time in decades, I didn't scowl. My coffee tasted sweeter. My bathrobe felt lighter. My beard practically glowed. And I thought to myself, Grumps, are you evolving? So don't be alarmed if one of these days I stop grumbling and start giggling. If I trade my tinfoil hat for a halo. If instead of ranting about reality, I start humming and floating. When that day comes, if it ever does, you may call me by a new name. The blissfully bearded one, or the serene senior, or dare I say it, the glowing granddad, or maybe
the gleeful granddad, the blissed out boomer, the zen dad, the vibrant venerable, the jolly elder of light, the chuckling channeler, the huggable high energy human, the euphoric elder, the grandpa formerly known as Grumpy. See you in the next one, if I haven't ascended before then.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the Grumpy Old Buggers channel, so I can get some peace and quiet.